One of the really cool features that got introduced in Joomla 1.7 and is also available in Joomla 2.5 is the ability to extend user profiles farther than they go currently. If you take a look in your user manager and you take a look at any one of these logins, let's say volunteer, you'll see that the pieces of information that are collected when you create a new account are very simple. There's a name, a login name, and a password and an email address. There's very little else that you have associated with your users. Now, historically, when people have wanted to collect more information about their users, they've used a third-party extension, such as Community Builder is one of them, or Jom Social is another that's very popular. And sometimes they use these extensions, which are really all about social media and social networking, just to get a few extra fields in the user registration for their clients. Fortunately, with this new innovation in Joomla, it might be that many of those people who would historically install a complicated extension like Community Builder or Jom Social may be able to just use core Joomla to collect some additional information. So let me show you how to enable that and configure it. So if we go into Extensions, Plugin Manager, and you take a look at all of the plugins you have on your screen here, if you go to the very last page of plugins, you'll notice that we have one here called User Profile. And if you go to the User Profile login and set the status to enabled, over on the right side of the screen, you'll see a series of additional profile fields that you can ask people for when they register for your website. It goes from the fairly basic, like address and city and zip, to the sublime. You can ask them for their favorite book, or you can ask them for a date of birth. You can also set any of these fields to be required, optional, or disabled. If they're required, they absolutely have to fill them in order to register for your website. If they're optional, they can fill them in if they choose to or not. And if they're disabled, they won't show up in the registration process. Note that there are two of these profiles. One is here at the top, specifically the pieces of information that are asked for when they register for the website or the administrator creates a new user account in the back end of Joomla. The bottom half are what user profile fields will be available when they want to go edit their user profile. I would recommend that you set these up the same way. Let's say that we're going to require address 1 but make address 2 optional. We'll require a city. We'll require a region. We'll disable the country. We'll require the postal code. We'll make the phone optional and the website optional. Let's disable the favorite book. Let's make an About Me optional, and let's disable the terms of service and the date of birth. So now I'm going to go through and set those up exactly the same here for the second set of options. So we require address 1, make address 2 optional, make the city required, make the region required, disable the country, require the zip code, optional phone, optional website, disable the book, optional About Me, and disable the terms of service and disable the date of birth. Go ahead and say Save and Close. And now that the User Profile plugin is configured and enabled, if I go into any of my user items over here, go into my User Manager, and I go edit, say, the super user, under User Profile, this is an accordion panel that did not previously exist. I now have all the fields that I configured, and I can go ahead and enter some additional information about the super user. Okay, so that's the User Profile plugin that's available to us in Joomla, and it's a great way to collect some additional information about your users.